Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to Mark Alford's Capital Recap. Each week I like to take you inside what's been happening in Washington, explain what it means for you, for Missouri's 4th Congressional District, and for the future of our great nation. But I got to start today with a word about Charlie Kirk. I had met Charlie Kirk at the convention last year in Milwaukee. What a patriot. What a true American who just wanted to simply talk about the truth and debate people using reason and being a rational human being to try to win people over. That's kind of what I try to do on our town hall tours. What a tragedy that he was assassinated trying to talk to people, trying to win them over, trying to explain the America First agenda. Charlie Kirk, 31 years old, leaves behind a family, and Leslie and I, of course, are praying for them. I do not condone political violence by either side. And, it's not safe out there right now. And for that reason, we are pausing for the foreseeable future any public events that we might have. I love getting out and meeting people in person. I loved our town hall tour that we just wrapped up. 15 stops in 4 days, took 252 questions. They got heated sometimes, but I wanted to be there listening. And unfortunately, that's come to an end for now. I cannot put my safety at risk. I cannot put our staff's safety at risk. I cannot put my family's safety at risk. We've got to turn down the heat in America, the rhetoric. And I'm going to do my part in doing that, but this is a serious time in America. So please pray for Charlie Kirk's family in this loss, the assassination of a true patriot. Well, let's get back to Washington, D.C. I'm recording this right now in one of the appropriations rooms because I had to walk out of our markup session. We are very busy trying to get the final bill now. We have 12 appropriations bills, and we're now in Commerce, Justice, and Science. And I stepped out to do this recording. A lot going on here in Washington, from advancing the big legislation, setting a new vision for America's defense, securing our borders, focusing on broadband for rural communities, and delivering results back home. We are going to cover it all for you on this episode. So let's dive in. For decades now, we have lived with the Department of Defense. The very word defense kind of puts us, it puts us in a reactive posture. It suggests that we wait until we're attacked and then we respond. We're defensive. History shows us, though, that mindset does not deter our enemies. It does not keep America safe. I think what President Trump, what Secretary Pete Hegseth and others are calling for is a return to the Department of War concept, and I fully agree with that. This isn't about being a warmonger. This isn't about picking fights. It is about clarity about who we are as a nation. The Department of War makes it very clear that our mission, the mission of our military, is to fight and to win. It is peace through strength, period. Think about it, folks. Our adversaries like Communist China, Russia, Iran, they are not organizing their militaries around defense. They are organizing them for victory, to win, for power, dominance, whatever. If America is going to remain the leader of the free world, if we're going to protect our nation and its people, then we have to put the warrior ethos back. And that's what Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is doing under the direction of Donald J. Trump. That means recentering on lethality, recapturing the warrior ethos that made the American military the most feared and respected in the entire world. Our warfighters deserve a Congress that puts their needs first. Now, speaking of the return to the warrior ethos, let's talk about one of the biggest pieces of legislation we take up each and every year, the National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA. It's a big package. We just passed it this week. This year's bill is very important because it reflects the shift that we just talked about, a return to peace through strength, a return to a warrior-first approach. I want you to hear from one of my colleagues, Congressman Ronnie Jackson from Texas, in a moment. Okay. He's on the House Armed Services Committee. I was on that last term before I got on appropriations. And we're good friends. He was once the White House doctor, actually, and he made the ear patch for President Trump after he was shot. He spent a lot of time with President Trump. And he's been to Missouri several times. But I want to walk you through what it really means for you, for the people of Missouri. First, the Kansas City National Security Campus, down on the 150 highway just east of 49, the interstate there. That's where they build the non-nuclear components for our nuclear triad. This NDAA promotes growth right here at home, right there, supporting jobs and driving advanced national security work in our own backyard. Secondly, we did some good things for the University of Missouri system, including the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Our university system continues to deliver cutting-edge research that supports our warfighters. This research leads to new technologies, new energy systems, new innovations that keep America ahead of our adversaries. And as I told you before, there is a vision to make Kansas and Missouri through Kansas City, through this defense corridor that will include University of Missouri, Kansas City, and research they're doing on drones that can be used in wartime, and other programs they're working on there. Also, we are rebuilding the submarine battery supply chain through the University of Missouri system. Our Navy cannot be dependent on foreign nations for the very power that drives its fleet, okay? These nuclear subs in particular, when they're not using nuclear power, and even when they are, sometimes they have batteries. Some of those batteries are actually made in Missouri. I don't know if you know that, but there's a big battery facility in Warrensburg called Intersys. I've been there. They make a lot of big batteries for submarines, for Humvees, and for other military applications. There's more battery production down in the Joplin area, but this bill really invests in restoring America's capacity so we can remain mission ready. Fourth, we are investing in warfighter energy materials, and that means new technologies that make our troops more mobile, more effective, and more capable on the battlefield. Fifth, we have the Fleet Logistics Intelligence Platform, or FLIP, and this is going to help streamline Air Force logistics and maintain across their enormous vehicle fleets. It's about saving you money, the taxpayer money, while improving readiness. Sixth, there's something called the Joint Assault Bridge that we're funding through this NDAA. It gives the Army Division the ability to cross rivers and gaps and deliver maximum armor and firepower to the fight. They're using it right now, training on this down at Fort Leonard. In fact, I got to operate this Leonardo bridge. It's made by a company called Leonardo. Seventh, we are strengthening internet operations management. This is going to cut down response times to cybersecurity threats, because in today's world, the battlefield isn't just about land, air, or sea. It's also online. And finally, we help secure a provision that recognizes our heroic B-2 pilots out of Whiteman Air Force Base for their role in the successful Operation Midnight Hammer in decapitating Iran's nuclear program. This language closely mirrors the resolution that we introduced earlier this year. Folks, these are huge wins, just a few of the wins that we had in the National Defense Authorization Act. They're really concrete improvements that are going to help keep America safe. It's going to strengthen our economy, and it's going to create opportunities right here in Missouri. Now, here's Congressman Ronnie Jackson on how the NDAA delivers for special operators, intelligence professionals, and defense industry workers. Ronnie?
I would like to begin by thanking Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Smith for their leadership in bringing this bipartisan legislation to the floor for the 65th consecutive year. The Intelligence and Special Operations Subcommittee portions of this bill, in conjunction with approximately $2.2 billion in reconciliation funding, continues to focus on providing our Special Operations Forces, the defense enterprise, and the security cooperation enterprise with the tools required to ensure their capabilities can support the department's efforts in strategic competition and encountering malign PRC actions. This bill supports critical platforms like the V-22 and the MV-75, which are assembled in Texas' 13th Congressional District. This legislation also provides the U.S. Special Operations Command with the ability to accelerate research, development, testing, and procurement at speed and scale to affect outcomes against adversaries through the Urgent Innovation Technologies and Capabilities Pilot Program. The authority for SOCOM, combined with the Defense Intelligence Enterprise and the Defense Security Cooperation Agency's efforts, will continue to be our strategic hedge against an increasingly contested and denied battle space by peer adversary capabilities and malign influence. We will enable leaders to make informed decisions in an increasingly complex world, enhancing the U.S. military's lethality across the board. Finally, this bill, coupled with reconciliation, is just the beginning of the increased resourcing needed to ensure our Special Operations Forces, the Defense Intelligence Enterprise, and the Security Cooperation Enterprise can support the Department's efforts in strategic competition and countering malign influence. We owe it to the men and women who volunteer to serve in these roles.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Ronnie. Thanks to my colleague for explaining how important it was for us to pass the NDAA. Between that and passing our last two appropriation bills out of the committee, it's been a very busy week. Some of our sessions have gone 15 hours in getting these out of committee. Speaking of appropriations, we were in our subcommittee for Labor, Health, Human Services for about 13 hours on Tuesday. We were debating for a while on public broadcasting funding and not funding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting any longer. You know, I've been a big proponent of that, and I want you to hear some of the reasons behind that. You know, I was there in Kansas City on television doing the news for 23 years, 35 years in total. I competed against a lot of these Corporation for Public Broadcasting stations. Well, folks, you are listening to Mark Alford's Capital Recap. I hope that you're getting some good out of this. We are working for you here in Washington, and we're working for the future of America. When we come back, we want to share about our Small Business Committee hearing that is on rural broadband. A lot of you listening in the city right now in the metro are thinking, doesn't everyone have broadband? No. A lot of people out in the rural parts of Missouri do not have rural broadband. We're addressing that. We know how important it is to make sure, just like in the Rural Electrification Act in the 1930s, that made sure every home in America had electricity. We're trying to make sure that every home has high-speed internet. We're going to dive into that when we come back. You're listening to Mark Alford's Capital Recap. Stay with us. Well, welcome back, everyone, to Mark Alford's Capital Recap. Let's dive into a little more of what's happening here on Capitol Hill, or did this last week. House Republicans are taking action to secure America's homeland. This week, the House passed H.R. 3486, the Stop Illegal Entry Act. Here's what the bill does. It increases penalties for illegal aliens who have been deported but try to come back into our country illegally. Right now, the punishment is very weak. There's no real repercussions for doing that. It's practically an invitation for repeat offenders, basically. And a lot of times, these are not harmless individuals. They are criminals. They are drug traffickers, even gang members who exploit our broken system. We're putting a stop to it. With this bill, if someone's caught coming back in after they've already been deported, there's going to be real consequences, strong penalties for those individuals. Let's face it, the U.S. is a nation of laws. We welcome legal immigration. I think most of us are products of legal immigrants who have come here, done it the right way, become part of the fabric of America. Illegal aliens are ripping apart the fabric of America. If our laws mean anything, they have to be enforced. Take a quick listen to my colleague, Congressman Brad Knott from North Carolina, on his bill. Well, we just talked about restoring a warrior ethos to our military before the break, passing the fiscal year 2026 NDAA and the Stop Illegal Entry Act. Now, let's shift gears for just a little bit. Not everything we do in Washington is about foreign policy or the military. Some of it is about making sure everyday families and small businesses have the tools they need to thrive, to succeed. Last week, we held a Small Business Committee hearing that was really focused on one of the most important issues for rural America, and that is access to high-speed internet, broadband. Broadband today, it's kind of like electricity was 100 years ago. It's not optional now. It is essential for telemedicine, for online schools, for doing business online. It's essential. It connects students to education. It connects patients to doctors. It connects small businesses to their customers. It allows farmers to run precision agriculture. You know, a lot of these big combines now these $2 million combines are run by computer. It's kind of a hands-free experience. I've been up in John Deere combine with my brother-in-law there in Henry County, and it's a great way, but you've got to have high-speed internet to do it. Well, in this hearing, we examined how we can expand broadband into rural areas that have really been left behind, because if America is going to prosper, rural America has to prosper as well. Here's what our little conversation entailed in Small Business Committee. I have the honor of representing Missouri's 4th Congressional District, largely rural, 24 counties in the heart of Missouri, in the heart of America. Right now, 15 federal agencies with more than 100 different programs have been working to try to make sure that every American has access to broadband. Despite this, I meet folks each and every time I'm back in the district, and they ask me one thing: when are we getting broadband? Farmers cannot use modern technology. Families cannot access telemedicine. Small businesses are not willing to relocate to rural areas because they don't have the tools necessary to conduct small business in 2025. Many of my constituents lack the rural broadband, about 70,000 families. That's a lot. And this is despite billions of dollars being spent on attempts to expand rural broadband, including the most recent tranche of $42 billion from the Biden administration's Infrastructure and Jobs Act. It is unacceptable, in my opinion, that 7 million homes and businesses, primarily in rural areas like central Missouri, still lack access to rural broadband. Ms. Westbrook, thank you for being here today. Billions of taxpayer dollars, as we've said, have already been spent on broadband expansion, and yet rural communities still do not have adequate access. Why is that?
Well, I will give you my professional opinion on that. I believe that the reason that they don't have access yet is because the way certain programs have been administered, that the programs have given money to companies that don't follow through on the work that they say they're going to do, or they take shortcuts. They don't put in the robust connections that should be put in, and then they're lacking that connectivity still in rural America. And we see it over and over with large corporations that say X and they don't do X. And that's very concerning when you live in small rural communities and you hear that often.
Are there any consequences to that lack of fulfillment for what they are really charged with doing with the federal government's money?
I am unaware of any.
Mr. Todd, you're the CEO of Nextech, a company bringing fiber to rural communities in nearby Kansas. Given your advocacy for broadband funding reform, what legislative or regulatory burden do you believe most slows deployment in areas like my district?
Thank you for the question. And I would say what would slow things down is generally the permitting process. As you know, there are different levels of permitting and right-of-way access that must be navigated. You've got different programs within the federal government which are not in sync, but you also have state and county and municipality codes that you have to work with. All of those can present delays in getting the permitting necessary to build out a project. That leads to delays and increased cost, unfortunately.
As I stated, more than 100 programs have been set up to try to get rural broadband to everyone. Can you explain how a streamlined effort could help providers and their customers in rural communities? I assume some of this would be overcoming some of these regulations that are stifling the growth of expansion.
I believe consistency would simplify things. Streamlining and consistency would make a difference. When a different program follows different rules and how you approach not only presenting a project, but being approved and then acting on it, then that creates complications. So uniformity and consistency would be a great help.
Mr. Werf, we have 1 minute left. There are thousands of folks just like you in my district who are forced to adapt and attempt to run their small businesses without full access to broadband. How has this lack of access to broadband, how has that affected your business?
Thank you for the question. We've been fortunate so far that we've been able to locate facilities and locate people in areas where we have access to at least something as far as broadband goes. But an overarching part of this conversation is not just broadband, but cellular access. Because oftentimes, for example, our billing and software and everything for our ag retail facilities, those orders are all taken on iPads. So either it's a hotspot or cellular connectivity, but the software itself is based in Illinois and operates all on cloud. So we can't operate without high-speed, reliable internet. And so occasionally that forces us to reconsider where we want to locate a facility.
Thank you. Thank you all for your answers and for being here today, and I yield back, Chair. Folks, as you know, each and every week our focus on how our work in Washington translates to real wins for you. And when we expand the Kansas City National Security Campus, that means jobs and pride for our district. When we rebuild the submarine battery supply chain, that means restoring American manufacturing right here in the 4th District and not relying on an adversaries. Before we close out, your feedback, I want to let you know that your feedback is very, very valuable as we fight for common sense solutions in Congress. If you could not make it to our town hall tour and you have a concern, please send a message to our office anytime. You can get the information on how to do that at offer.house.gov. We have a computer system. If you call in, if you email in, we keep track of those and we try to make sure that you get a timely response. Together, folks, we will continue to make Missouri's 4th District strong. As I leave today, again, say a little prayer for Charlie Kirk's family. Say a little prayer for us as we are trying to do our part to make America great again. Appreciate you listening to Mark Alford's Capital Recap. I'm proud to serve you. Remember, I believe in you. I believe in America. And yes, I still believe that our best days are still ahead of us. Good day, and God bless.